So in this video, we'll go over some of the functional groups, right? And we'll try to visualize the functional groups, and we'll try to learn the functional groups by looking at them, right? In the 3D world and how they actually look like. So this molecule, right, is CH3, C double bond O, right, CH3. The white balls are actually the hydrogen balls. So CH3, C, and this is a double bond O, right? So this is a double bond O and an H. So this is actually an aldehyde, right? So a carbon double bonded to an oxygen, right? Having a carbon chain on one side, and on the other side, if it has a hydrogen, right, that is now called an aldehyde, right? So if you see here, if you look here, this is an oxygen. So carbon double bonded to an oxygen and having hydrogen on one of the side is actually an aldehyde. And now if that hydrogen of that carbonyl compound, or in other words, C double bond O, when one of the hydrogen is actually replaced by another carbon substituent. So it doesn't necessarily have to be CH3. So it can be CH2, CH3, it can be CH2, CH2, CH3, right? That kind of molecules, they are called a ketone. So now this molecule is actually a ketone, right? Let's see how it looks like. This is a acetone, the compound actually used in nail paint removers. That is actually acetone or ketone, right? Okay, now let's look at this other molecule where now one of the onto your C double bond O, right? Onto the C double bond O. Now, if one of the H of that aldehyde is actually replaced by an OH, right? So one of the H is now actually an OH. So this is also an O and the H. And now this compound is called a carboxylic acid, right? So if you have a C double bond O and an OH, right? And on the left, if you have is a CH3 group, that compound with the C double bond OH, and on the left side is still a carbon chain like in aldehyde. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be CH3, but it can be CH2, CH2, CH3, any number of carbon chains or any number of carbons in the chain, that would be called a carboxylic acid, right? Now let's look at what happens if we replace an OH with an NH2. So now what happens, let's see if the C double bond O is actually connected to an NH2, right? Nitrogen and the hydrogen, instead of just your OH, just the H. Now that is called a amide or amide. Now this functional group is called an amide, right? So from this logic or from this extrapolation, what we learned is that if you have an R group and that R group is connected to C double bond O and has an H, that is called aldehyde. If you have an R group and if we replace that H and we convert that to an R group, now that is called a ketone, right? And now if you replace that R group and you put an OH group on it, now this is called a carboxylic acid. And if you replace that OH with an NH2, that now will be called an amide or an amide. So let me know in the comment section if you like this explanation of remembering the functional groups or even visualizing your functional groups, and if it helped in any of the memorization. And I will see you guys in the next video with more cool visuals of organic chemistry. Bye now.